Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, an adapted classic. Opening letters. Letter 1, to Mrs. Saville, England, St. Petersburg, December 11, 17. You will be happy to hear that I arrived in St. Petersburg safely. My first task is to assure my dear sister that I am doing well and that I am looking forward to success in my undertaking. As I walk through the streets, I can feel a cold northern breeze on my face. This breeze, which comes from the North Pole, gives me a delightful taste of what it will be like there. Most people think that the North Pole is a lifeless place of snow and ice. I believe that it is a place of beauty and delight. I am sure that I will find a land more beautiful and wondrous than any other region on earth. In that country of eternal light, I might discover the power that attracts a compass needle. The idea of being the first person to reach the pole is enough to help me conquer my fear of danger or death. I have been dreaming of this adventure since I was a child. Do you remember Uncle Thomas's library? Every book in it was about a voyage of discovery. I did not have an education, and yet I read those books day and night. I have been preparing myself for this voyage for the past 6 years. I went on whaling ships to the North Sea several times. I voluntarily experienced cold, famine, thirst, and lack of sleep. I am well prepared for what lies ahead. My courage is firm, but my hopes and spirits are often depressed. I am about to begin a long and difficult voyage, and I will be responsible for the safety of my crew. I know that I am as well prepared as anyone can be. I also know that anything might go wrong. In 2 or 3 weeks, I shall depart for the city of Archangel. There, I will hire a ship and find a crew. We will sail in June, but who knows when we shall return. May heaven bless you and help me. Your loving brother, Robert Walton. Letter 2, to Mrs. Saville, England, Archangel, March 28, 17. How slowly the time passes here. We are closed in by frost and snow, and I am in the process of finding a crew. I am greatly looking forward to this adventure, but one thing saddens me. I have no friend to share in my joy. Also, if anything goes wrong, I have no one to talk to about it. I have good sailors so far, and a good man for a captain. Perhaps he will be my friend I am looking for. He is one of a very sensitive nature. I heard the story about him. Some years ago, he was in love with a young woman. Her father had already agreed to their marriage, but the woman told him she loved another man. He was a poor man, and her father would not agree to the marriage. So the captain gave her his entire fortune and the farm where he had hoped to live with her. Then he left so that she could marry the man she loved. But enough about that. I can hardly wait to get started. We are just waiting for the weather to clear up. Then we will be on our way to the unexplored regions. We shall soon see what a poet once called the land of mist and snow. Please write whenever you can. Perhaps your letters will get to me when I most need to hear from you. Letter 3, to Mrs. Saville, England, July 7, 17. I write a few lines in haste to say that I am safe and on my way. This letter will reach England on a ship headed home from Archangel. As we travel north, we see big sheets of floating ice, but this doesn't seem to scare the men. We are now far north, but it is not as cold as you think. The southern breezes bring us the warmth of England. Not much has happened so far, nothing worth writing about anyway. I will be happy indeed if everything continues to go as so well. I am not looking for any danger, just for success. I must close this letter now. Heaven bless my dear sister. Letter 4, to Mrs. Saville, England, August 5th, 17. Something so strange has happened. 6 days ago, we were nearly surrounded by ice. It closed in the ship on all sides, leaving hardly enough room for us to float. Our situation was dangerous, for we were also surrounded by a very thick fog. We cast anchor, hoping that a change would soon take place. About 2 o'clock, the fog cleared away, and we saw a vast plains of ice sketched out in every direction. A strange sight suddenly attracted our attention and made us forget the danger in which we found ourselves. We saw a dog sled about half a mile away. A creature shaped like a man, but of gigantic size, guided the dogs. We watched the rapid progress of the traveler through our telescopes until he was lost in the distance, headed north. We were hundreds of miles from land. Where could he have come from? About 2 hours after this, the ice began to break up. We decided to wait until morning before getting started again. We didn't want to hit any large pieces of ice in the dark. In the morning, as soon as it was light, I went on deck. I found all the sailors busy on one side of the ship. They were leaning over, talking to someone in the sea. A dog sled, like the one we had seen before, had drifted toward us on a large piece of ice. Only one dog remained alive, but there was a man in the sled. The sailors were trying to get him to come on board the ship. He was not, as the other travelers seemed to be, a giant from some undiscovered island. He was a European. He spoke in English with a foreign accent. "Before I board your ship, will you tell me which way you are going?" he asked. You can well imagine how surprised I was to hear such a question. After all, this man was in obvious need of help. I would have expected him to be begging us to take him on board. When I told him we were heading north on a voyage of discovery, he agreed to come on board. His arms and legs were nearly frozen, and his body was terribly thin. He was tired and in pain. We tried to carry him into the cabin, but as soon as he was out of the fresh air, he fainted. So we brought him back on deck, wrapped him in blankets, and fed him some soup. This made him feel better. After 2 days, he was able to speak. I moved him into my own cabin. I never saw a more pained man. His eyes looked wild to the point of madness. He was generally melancholy and despairing, as if he carried the woes of the world on his back. But if anyone was kind to him, his whole face lit up. One of the men finally asked him why he had come so far on the ice in a dog sled. He immediately looked serious and said, "To seek one who fled from me." "Did the man you were following travel in a dog sled?" "Yes." "Then I think we saw him. The day before we picked you up, we saw a dog sled with a man in it across the ice." This got the stranger's attention, and he asked many questions. He wondered if we thought that the other dog sled had been destroyed when the ice broke. I told him that it was impossible to know. Since the ice had broken several hours after we saw him, the other traveler might have had enough time to get to a place of safety. From then on, the stranger wanted to be on a deck so that he could watch for the other dog sled. I told him that he was too weak, but that I would have someone watch for him. Such is my knowledge about this stranger up to the present day. He has improved in health, but he is very quiet. I am the only one he seems comfortable with. I told you before, dear Margaret, that I wished I had a friend. Perhaps I have found one. I will continue this letter about the stranger whenever I have new things to report. August 13, 17. My affection for the stranger increases every day. He is gentle, intelligent, and refined. He is feeling much better now, and he is always on deck, looking out on the ice. We have spoken about my expedition to the pole. I told him how important it is to me. One man's life or death is but a small price to pay for the knowledge I am seeking, I told him. When I said this, a dark gloom spread over his face. He placed his hands over his eyes, and I saw tears trickle fast from between his fingers. Then he groaned, and finally he spoke. "Unhappy man, do you share my madness? If you knew what I know, you would change your mind." R.W. August 19, 17. Yesterday the stranger said, "I have decided to share with you what I have learned. You seek knowledge and wisdom as I once did. I hope that it doesn't cost you as much as it has cost me. I've only one more thing to do during my life, and after that my life will be over. I see that you think you can help me. Once you have heard my story, however, you will understand that I am beyond any help." He will begin his story tomorrow. Each evening I will write down what he says, using his own words as much as possible. Even now, as I begin my task, his full-toned voice swells in my ears.